Hey folks, here we're going to take a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Death Roads All-Stars, and it's from the publisher, The Knights of Unity. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page to find out more information than I could possibly tell you here. To do that, all you got to do is follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. Go there, find out more information, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, Death Roads All-Stars is a competitive post-apocalyptic racing game. You and the other players are these highly competitive drivers from all very colorful walks of life who are driving these souped-up death cars that are like, they kind of look like traditional cars, but with all this souped up intricate stuff on them designed to destroy other cars and to win races. And you're going to be getting more weaponry and stuff during the course of the game to use with them too. But in any case, you're going down these different tracks and you're trying to do a few different things. You either want to just win the race outright, but hey, maybe that's a little bit boring for you, and maybe instead you just want to destroy all the other players, or at least stay out of the path of carnage and let them destroy each other. That's another way you could possibly win. And sometimes there are very special objectives you might be going for in order to win the game as well. If that all sounds a little bit complicated, well, it's really not. It's actually quite straightforward. So what we're going to do is take a look at a preview copy of the game, a prototype copy of the game, that may change in the final version. So just do bear that in mind as we go along here. But then in any event, we will come back and discuss it further. Death Roads All-Stars is a competitive racing game for 2 to 4 players. In a dystopian future, you and the other players compete in the death tournaments, racing tricked-out battle cars against each other. You'll need to not only be a good driver, but also make the best use of action cars representing gear and weapons for your car, as well as avoid dangerous hazards. There are 2 normal ways to win: be the last car and driver standing with every other player eliminated, or be the player closest to the finish line when the last round is complete, thus winning the race. But it's also possible to meet a special advanced condition and win as well if you're playing with those. We'll get into all that. Set up the game by first laying out the game board representing the track. The board is double-sided, and you should all choose which side you prefer to use for your first game. Players should randomly decide who gets the first pick of the available cars, and then each remaining player will choose in clockwise order. Each car has a unique deck of action cards and a board with which the player will keep track of their gear, condition, and handling values, as well as their bash damage values, and these values may change from car to car. Place tokens on the maximum condition and handling values in the second spot of the gear track. Also place a stack of 3 damage tokens on the skull in order of green on top, then orange, then red. Take an accompanying token that matches your car's picture and place it in the appropriate initiative spot depending on what order you picked. Players will then take turns in the reverse of that order to pick their driver card. Drivers have special actions that they can use once per turn by discarding action cards and spending handling value, and also a special ability that is always available, when applicable. Once you've got a driver and a car, it's time to build your deck of action cards. Every car has its own unique set of action cards, and to that, each player will draft 2 card sets of weapons from each of 3 weapon decks in a similar method to how they drafted their cars and drivers. Add these 6 new weapons to your existing car cards and shuffle it face down to form your player deck. You'll draw 5 cards for the start of the game. Lastly, for the players themselves, they'll take turns in their original choosing order, placing their car miniature in one of the lanes and spaces on the track in the special starting area. Every car in the game has its own unique and highly detailed miniature. Then set up the rest of the game area. Make a space for special status tokens near the board and also lane close boards, which will be used either in lower player count games or when certain game conditions dictate it. Shuffle the skid cards together and place them near the board. These represent erratic movement and effects that may happen to the cars during the game, but we'll get into that later. Shuffle the road event cards and place 5 at random face down in a row near the board and remove the rest from the game. Road events are either harmful or beneficial events that affect the game and also act as a way to keep track of when the game will end. If you're playing in advanced mode of the game, you'll also shuffle and place 1 final stretch card face down near the 3rd road event card. When revealed, if a player can meet the special condition on the card, they can win the game outright. Finally, shuffle the lane cards, as many as needed for the board and lanes you're using, and place a stack near the board. The game can now begin. Every round of Death Roads All-Stars takes place in phases. First is the initiative phase. For every round after the first, the initiative is determined by the placement of players' cars on the track, with the car closest to the far ahead line on the right side of the board going in the first initiative slot, and ties being broken first by the cars with the highest current gear, and, if still tied, defaulting to the position they're already in on the track. Next is the reveal event phase. Whoever has the top initiative slot will flip over the first of the event cards that are near the board and read it out loud. If necessary, that player will draw a lane card to determine which lane is affected, and then place the event token on that lane, either on its red or green side as indicated, indicating either negative or positive events respectively. The event will actually resolve later in the round. This is just a warning to give you time to move in or out of the affected lane. The lane cards are then reshuffled. If it's an advanced game and it's the third round, you will need to flip over the final stretch card as well and read it out loud so players know what they're vying for. If you can't flip over an event card in this phase because none remain, the game ends immediately and the winner is whoever is in the first position on the initiative track, thus representing that they are going to complete the race first. But assuming that doesn't happen, play continues to the race phase, where the actions happen. Players take turns in initiative order, either using one driver action or playing one card from hand, or both. They may also choose to pass for the rest of the round and they cannot jump back in, or they can focus by discarding a card and waiting for their next turn to come around to see what the other players do. Every action card and driver action has a handling cost in the top corner, and player actions will also require discarding one or more cards. And you'll move down your handling token as you play these actions. You can't play cards or use effects if you have no handling left or negative handling left, but you can play an action that exceeds your remaining handling as long as you have at least one of that value left. But doing so will, at the very least, force you to draw a number of skid cards equal to your current gear level and resolve them, which can cause havoc on your race, either dealing damage to your condition or handling, or causing you to move in erratic ways. And if you go too far past the handling limit, you'll also be forced to take harmful status effects at the start of your action phase, like stunning or burning, which can affect your condition and actions. Many unique car actions affect the movement of your car and have an escalating effect based on your current gear level, which in turn can only be changed by using action cards, while weapon cards will target specific lanes and spaces around your car, potentially dealing damage to a car's condition or handling, or forcing the car to move or inflicting a status effect. If you would move into another car, instead deal your bashing damage to their condition and handling, and sometimes even force them to move. Falling too far behind on the board forces the player to take a negative condition, while going too far ahead past the end of the board would force players in other lanes back a space to simulate greater distance between the cars. Every time your car's condition is reduced below 1, ignore all remaining damage from that instance and instead remove a damage token from the stack if any remain, initiating the action on the token like changing gears or drawing a card. But if this happens and you have no tokens remaining, your car is destroyed and you are officially out of the game. The player who did this to you, if any, takes your initiative token as a trophy, which matters for certain card effects. When all players are out of handling or have passed, the next phase begins, which is resolving the event that was flipped earlier in the round. Do whatever the card says to the affected lane and then discard that card. And lastly is the preparation phase. All players recharge their handling meter, discard as many remaining action cards in their hand as they like, and then draw new cards to their hand until they have a total of 5. If you need to, you can also reshuffle your deck to keep drawing. Play continues until either one player has the last car on the road, there are no more event cards to draw, or someone meets the final stretch condition on the chosen card. And that is Death Roads All-Stars. Well, Death Roads All-Stars is one of those games that actually takes a unique theme and doesn't just say, let's just make a card game out of it, or let's just make like a roll and move game out of it. They actually made the attempt to not just have, high quality components, and obviously this is a prototype copy of the game, but you can imagine what the final version components, especially for those cars, are going to look like. But they not just said, okay, let's just have some nice components. They actually wedded that together with the gameplay systems in the game. So you have those cards, but in this case, those cards are directly facilitating how you attack, how you move, how you switch gears, and your ability to use them is entirely dependent upon the conditions of your car, the handling and conditions of the car, and what your characters can do and how much effort and brain power they have to expend to actually do these things while they're, again, this is all actively happening. Like thematically, you are barreling down this post-apocalyptic highway trying to stay alive and knock the other cars out or just get to the finish line. So everything is taxing you. Your ability to handle the car, the damage to your car, whether you skid out, whether you expend too much effort trying to move your car around in certain ways and end up skidding off of the road. All these are different things that you have to take into consideration and will impact your ability to actually use certain cards in gameplay terms, obviously. But again, this all ties together thematically because some cards are affected directly by what gear you're in. The higher that your gear is, the better use you're going to get out of that card. But then the higher risk that's going to happen if you overextend yourself and skid out. So these are all different things you have to take into mind. On top of the fact that you have these events that happen, random events every round, that you have warning of, right? So you're not completely in the dark. You can try and switch lanes, or if it's a beneficial thing, you can try to be in that lane. But that, of course, that's easier said than done. But you can't say that you weren't warned ahead of time. And then if you choose to play with the advanced game, you also have that special objective you can go for, which might change your entire playstyle. It may change entirely what you're going for, but you're not going to know that till the third round. So in the meantime, you have to stay alive and try to be the best racer that you can. There's tons of variety in the game because of the fact that each of your characters has a unique standard ability, but also different player actions that determine their movement and combat capabilities. All of the cars are different. They have their own unique decks of cards for their actions, in addition to all the different types of weapons that you draft. So those are going to be different every game too. But also your car might have different stats in some way. So just a different focus and bent. So when you mix different drivers with different cars, you're going to have a very different experience every time. So you have all of that variety, all of that thematic gameplay, and all of in the final, not just the prototype version, but in the final version of the game, high quality components as well. So if that sounds like it appeals to you, and again, it's the melding of the genres, right? So if you like the kind of post-apocalyptic setting and the grittiness of the different characters, and the cars, if you like racing games in general, you don't think that there's enough of them, and if you just like that mesh together of theme plus mechanics, then hey, listen. Or if you know someone who likes all those things, listen. You don't need to take my word for any of that. You can go to the official Kickstarter page and find out more information than I could have possibly told you here. To do that, follow the link in the top corner of your screen, as well as down in the description section underneath this video. That is Death Road's All-Stars from the publisher, the Knights of Unity. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, for supporting our sponsors. Take care.